Well, the statistics are scaring, and of course, the data is right. That almost 2.1 million Kenyans are facing starvation. The situation is dire, especially in arid and semi-arid areas. The question is this: what are we doing as a nation to ameliorate this situation? That will form our conversation later on. We are focusing on drought in this country and the food security, and I'll be engaging a team of experts on what we need to do in a bid to deal with this kind of a crisis. But before we get there, we also have some conversation around data. Data is a new oil, and it is the future gold. And so everyone is rushing to amass as much data as possible. And the question is, what are we doing as a country to try and safeguard your data? There is a law in place. But you know what? According to some very interesting statistics from Ernst & Young, this was released this year, about 41% of companies in Kenya managed to share your data to third parties without your consent and with total disregard of the law. Some of them did not actually know that there was a law that exists to deal with these issues. The question is, how safe is the data that you give out? This is BizCheck, where we discuss serious stuff that matters to you. My name is Kimani, and of course, as usual, we have our team of reporters in the field trying to track the happenings in your county. Right now, we want to dash to the county of Marsabit, where Seraphine Ochieng is going to have a conversation around what the county is doing and the situation of drought in Marsabit County, bearing in mind that it is one of the counties that is adversely affected by drought. And she's now ready with the county commissioner for Marsabit. Seraphine Ochieng, I can see it is bright and beautiful in Marsabit County. I know the situation is wanting, what is the status on the ground?
A very good morning to you, Brian Kimani. They are back in studio. You are indeed right. We are coming to you live from Marsabit County, a county that has faced what I would term a triple tragedy. The county has just been recovering from the impacts of the locust invasion, and we also understand the perennial problem of insecurity in this particular region. But the more recent challenge that the residents of this particular county have been facing is the issue of drought that has left many households struggling to get food and also livestock to get water. And of course, we are here with the county commissioner, Paul Rotich, just to give us a picture of the status of the county and the situation in terms of security and the drought situation, especially now that we are receiving reports that 3 people were killed in just the last 2 days. We just want to understand more about what the security agencies are doing to contain the situation and also what is being done to mitigate the impact of drought. A very good morning to you, Mr. Rotich. Thank you so much for joining us. We are live on KBC Channel 1. Just quickly tell us about these recent killings and whether you have identified what could have been the fueling factor, and just describe to us how this has impacted the life of residents in this particular county.
Thank you, Ajeng. First, I want to start by saying that in the last 1.5 months, we have not experienced any serious insecurity incident, less for the one which we had in the last 2 days. Over the last 2 days, it's true that we have lost lives, and to be exact, we have lost 3 lives. From the security perspective, we view it as acts of criminality. Unfortunately for our residents in Marsabit and for our communities who live in the county, they make it to look like it is a tribal kind of a conflict. We lost a key person who was helping us in spearheading the peace process. And what really happened is that he was ambushed when he was driving along the road in Marsabit Forest. And unfortunately, he was shot dead and we lost him. Arising from that, And having said that, communities here view acts of criminals as community attacks. One older man in town, which we translated as an act of revenge. And what is making the situation more complicated for us is the community's inability to expose criminals. We sort of glorify criminals. We protect them because they are our soldiers. These are our people who protect us. The other issue which we really face is availability of illegal firearms. This is an issue which is compounding the situation when locals, when citizens have firearms which are illegal, they can do anything with it, and criminals can get it easy for them to commit acts of crime. But the positive side is that we are on top of the game. We have dispatched our investigative agencies. They are on the ground, and in one case we're making good progress. We believe that we are going to make positive progress towards that end, and I don't want to divulge at this level more details about it because of the security net.
Yeah, that is understandable. You cited the killing of, is it the chair of the Borana Peace Community? And this killing happened just a few days after, there was a peace meeting between the warring communities. How is this going to impact some of the agreements that, were reached at that particular meeting? And also just describe to us how the situation is. We've been walking around town and it's everywhere. It's like a deserted place. How is the situation like as we speak this morning?
Of course, definitely it has shouldered the peace process which was going on. But I want to assure you that we are not giving up. The only route to a peaceful process which will be lasting is to encourage people to talk to one another. As we pursue that route, we also pursue the route of law enforcement and making the security organs to work the way it is supposed to work, so that we can achieve. People can see that government is doing its work, and we are doing the right thing, so that we can create confidence amongst the locals. But I want to say that it's true that whenever acts of death happen, definitely there will be uncertainties, there will be fears, and people will always keep off from doing their normal activities. But I want to assure them that we have managed the situation, and everything is returning to normal. I'm sure you've walked around town, and we have adequate security personnel performing their patrols. Yeah.
All right. On the drought situation, as they just about to close this, what is the status currently, and how is the level of impact from your assessment on the residents of this particular county?
On drought situation, we are at that crisis level. The food situation is not good, both for humans and for livestock. We are estimating around 160,000 persons directly affected by the drought. The most affected constituencies are actually North Horr and Laisamis. And the water levels there, the surface water, 95% of the surface water has dried up, meaning that locals largely depend on the boreholes to access the water, both for livestock and for humans. We've had quite a number of intervention measures, both from the government and non-government organizations. The Red Cross has come in Nandi between the month of June and September. They distributed food to approximately 8,000 households. We have had also organizations like USAID Nawiri. They have done some good work in cushioning families by distributing the same foodstuffs. Apart from that, there are government programs which are also on course, which are running. We have the Hunger Safety Network program, which is meant to cushion the families which are very vulnerable, and these families receive monetary help directly from government and run by NDMA on a regular basis. So quite a number of interventions are being made. We are expecting more foodstuffs from government to arrive anytime from tomorrow. We are also expecting animal feeds to come in from the Ministry of Devolution. So we are running quite a number of programs geared towards cushioning the families and also the livestock, which is a major livelihood for the people of this county. Yes.
Mr. Rotich, there's always that notion that the scramble for the scarce resources usually lead to some of these insecurity issues. Right now, has that been the case? The scramble for pasture, for resources like water, has that been in any way connected to this insecurity situation in the last few months?
Okay, in view of the drought situation which is now existing in the county, I have earlier on mentioned that the surface water has completely depleted in most of the areas, especially in Northwell and Laisamis. In Sagu constituency, there have been total crop failure, and beginning from last year, October last year to date, we have not had adequate rainfall enough to support crop agriculture, meaning that we have lost all the crops in the field. On the issues of conflict arising from competition for water and pasture, it's true that in situations of drought, definitely pasture will be gone, and it will be a scarce resource, just like water. But what we have done, and it has largely worked for us, is that we have always been having committees to manage those scarce resources, especially for water and pasture. So we have reactivated the water and pasture management committees from all communities, so that where we have pasture, we can share, all communities can share, and we can minimize conflict. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. I've been speaking to Paul Rotich, who is the County Commissioner for Marsabit County, talking about the situation in this particular county with regards to security and even the drought situation. And he has given an assurance that there is an ongoing security operation, which is a much needed, situation right now for the residents who actually now have to walk long distances in search of food and water, and also for those who are distributing this food to these vulnerable families also need that kind of security. For now, it's back to you in studio, Brian Kimani. We really appreciate your time, sir, for creating time for us. My name is Safina Cheng Ouma. It's back to you in studio, Brian.
It was Safina Cheng coming to us live from the Marsabit County, where she was just engaging with the County Commissioner on the situation of drought and security. And just a quick update is that around 168,000 people are in dire need of food assistance, and the county government, together with the national government, they have ramped up operations to ensure that nobody goes to bed hungry. And so we are checking on that situation. And of course, we'll keep you posted. But time now for us to shift gear and of course discuss other things in regard to data, governance of data, the security of data, the sanctity of data in this country. It's a critical discussion all over the world. How do we secure the data that is in the hands of regulators, of government and other entities? And that's the question that we also want to pose to our expert in the studio this morning. And of course, we're joined by Mr. Jared Gitenga. He's the CEO of Credit Information Sharing Association of Kenya. Thank you very much indeed for finding time to be with us here. First of all, help us understand how are we sure that the data that we share with third parties, with second parties, is secure and it's safe and it is well taken care of?
Thank you, Brian. That's exactly why government thought we need to find a solution to this, because there is no way for an individual like me who provides data everywhere I go for security purposes, for transaction purposes. I do not have a way of establishing how well is my data protected, to whom is it shared, how is it analyzed, is it in my interest? And because that question is really a prevalent question, it is a relevant question, government found it necessary to establish a law strictly to answer that question, and on behalf of us consumers to ensure that our data is protected and used in our interest. Yeah.
And that's how the law came into pass, the Data Protection Act of 2019. But we still have instances whereby there are massive issues of data breach in many institutions. Is it that we have not yet secured the data that we have, or this is just a question of being reckless?
Well, everybody is looking for that data. Even sources that may not be valid data, valid sources, authorized sources. The world over, there are data breaches because people are trying to mine that data that is probably even authoritatively accessed, but unauthoritative sources try to reach it. And so they become very crafty in how they get into the systems of properly and official sources of data. And yes, there is a problem, because even in very developed countries you find major breaches of data, and that's because, as you said earlier, data is gold. It is the gold of people who are trying to market, people who are trying to come up with products, and so it is so valuable. And that process has not been fully. In Kenya now, with the Data Protection Act having been established just recently in 2019, not everything has been put in place. So its operationalization has not been fully made possible. The Data Commissioner was only appointed in November of 2019. Of 2020, after the Act was published in 2019. So really we can say it's not yet a year. But fortunately, a number of processes have been put in place, regulations have been drafted, guidance notes have been issued. So we see the journey is actually beginning, and we can expect a lot more sanctity of our data going forward.
And the most unfortunate thing is that, yes, there are steps that we as a country or the regulators are putting in place to ensure that data is protected and the sanctity of data is safeguarded.
Yes.
But it's quite unfortunate because, scammers and criminals, they're not... They are way much ahead of regulators. They are way much ahead of security agencies. So even as we put safeguards in place, how do we accelerate this process?
The first step towards accelerating this process is to register every data processor, because scammers know where this data is, and yet the regulators don't. So when we register anybody who accesses data for purposes of processing it, let's begin with the one who actually instructs the processor to process this data. They are called the data controllers. So those must be registered with the data commissioner. The data processor must be registered with the data commissioner. That's the first step to ensuring that at least we know exactly where this data is sitting. And then when regulations are issued, as they are being issued now, it is now possible to tell which particular person or organization is processing data in a manner that needs to be protected. So first thing is safeguard the environment, the ecosystem, establish who is doing what, and then now when we put in place these measures, they are targeted at very specific people. Yeah, and then the second thing, of course, is now once you have registered them, now is to assess, first of all, the impact of what they are doing, the impact of what changes they are making to their systems, and educate the consumer, the person, the individual whose data is being processed, so that they too can enforce some accountability. So one of the requirements of the Data Protection Act, for example, is that the consent of the individual whose data is being processed must be properly obtained. Yeah.
As an organization that brings together credit information sharing platforms. Recently, I think that was about 2-3 weeks back, you developed a code of conduct, to regulate and to ensure that credit sharing among creditors, data sharing among creditors is well guided. How many members have so far opted onto your platform?
Well, the credit bureau environment in Kenya, which you have referred to, is where all lenders put their data. And so we can say that the lenders here are controllers of data. Then the bureaus, and we have 3 bureaus in Kenya, credit bureaus.
Credit reference bureaus.
Credit reference bureaus. They are what you'd call the data processors now. And so all commercial banks in Kenya today are by law required to share our data as individual borrowers with these credit bureaus. So those are already 40 or so lenders. Then again, by law requirement, all microfinance banks, the regulated microfinance institutions, and there are 13 of them, are by law required to submit data to the bureaus. And then we have many SACCOs, licensed SACCOs, unlicensed SACCOs, and licensed microfinance institutions. And in total to date, we have 2,300 entities, around about 2,500 entities that are submitting data to the credit bureaus. Not all of them are members of our association, and that is why this code of conduct was launched, because then when you do not subscribe to particular regulations and you are allowed to submit data to the bureau, then nobody is really overseeing how exactly you are doing that job. So as CIS Kenya, we have been empowered by the regulator, the Central Bank of Kenya, to ensure that the data that is being submitted by all these 2,500, and the number is growing by the day, that they subscribe to the kind of requirements that the Data Protection Act, for example, requires of us.
So you're talking about 2,500 institutions that are supposed to share data or credit data to credit reference bureau. And one would imagine that's a lot of data, in the hands of 3 institutions. But have these institutions, the 3 institutions, the CRBs, have they been audited to ensure that there are no loopholes, there are no gaps in the way they handle this information? Because it is a lot of information.
It's a lot of information, and I agree that talking about 2,500, and that number is growing. We expect that, the SACCOs, for example, that are not regulated, that are joining on every month or every so often, new entrants are coming in, the microfinance institutions, then the digital lenders are also numerous. As this number grows, and we can expect it to exceed 10,000, 20,000 in the coming days, these are lots, this is a lot of data. So the first measure that was taken to ensure that there is proper control of the processes in the credit bureaus is to require that nobody will act as a credit bureau unless they are licensed by the central bank. So the licensing process processes the central bank undertakes and has made it so tight that not everybody can be a credit bureau. So if you and I today decide we want to be a credit bureau, the rigors of entry into that market are so tight that it won't be easy. So we haven't had serious breaches of data protection in our 3 bureaus in Kenya, and thanks to the regulatory role of the central bank, it has put in place very, very strict controls for who can be a credit reference bureau, what kind of systems are in place, how do they process their data. The central bank is familiar with the systems, and when they are making changes or introducing new products, those products are reviewed and assessed by the central bank. So that's a critical function of the regulator.
And of course, I mean, the code of regulation that you developed as an association, I mean, it has the blessings of the Central Bank of Kenya. But we're still awaiting the enactment of the CBK Amendment Act to bring on board more players and to ensure that information around data is well defined. So as we sit now, I mean, what are the punitive measures that are in place amongst your players to ensure that there is compliance?
Very well. The central bank controls a certain set of credit providers, the licensed banks particularly. And so it's so that this space is growing so much. There's so much enthusiasm by everybody who is lending to join the Credit Reference Bureau that the central bank realized that their mandate may be constrained. And so who is going to check all these unregulated credit providers who are joining the mechanism to ensure that their data is the consumer's data is properly channeled to these bureaus and is properly utilized? And so when this code of conduct was established, it was because the central bank wanted to delegate this responsibility to our association and say that for unregulated credit providers, you shall be responsible for ensuring that these systems are in place. And so we developed this code, and now the central bank has said that anybody who is unregulated must sign up to this code so that we can then follow up to ensure that everything we have prescribed, and there are very many requirements in that code, everything we have prescribed, we shall be responsible to ensure that it happens. That means that anybody who doesn't sign up to the code is therefore declaring that they are not prepared to be transparent, they are not prepared to observe best practices in data sharing. And so really, the first step is that if you don't sign up to the code, then you are out of the system. That's the first thing. Then the second thing about punitive measures to ensure that this code is implemented, we are setting up structures.
But even before we go to the punitive measures, I mean, look, Central Bank of Kenya is a legal entity, I mean, created by an act of parliament. The Credit Information Sharing Association, of course, it's not a legal entity. I mean, it's not created by any act of parliament. And so when you say that, CBK has mandated your association to bring on board accredited information sharers, I mean, how does that arrangement work?
Yeah, that's a very good question. What's the legitimacy of our association?
Exactly.
It is a legal entity. That's the first thing. CS Kenya is a legal entity, but you are right that it is not established by an act of parliament. It's not a body recognized in law by regulation, by regulators. But this is what we had to do, what the central bank had to do. Last year, the central bank amended its regulations and required that it will have a code of conduct issued by industry, and that code of conduct must be approved by the central bank. And so through that amendment last year of regulation, it opened a room and provided an opening for an entity that is an industry body to develop a code of conduct that will be assessed for its completeness by the central bank. And once it approves that, then it empowers one body through that regulatory process to be responsible for this. So we submitted the code of conduct, and it went through a thorough review process by the central bank, and based on that provision of regulation, that approval was granted to us. So there is a legal solution to that matter.
But still, though the amendments of the CBK Act, brought about the issues around, incorporating other stakeholders, like the Kenya Bankers Association, and so much, to develop codes of conduct, to regulate them, to somehow self-regulate themselves. But still, as an association, the much you can do for any institution that is not willing to join or to adhere to the code of conduct is to report the same to the Central Bank of Kenya.
Yes, and internally we also have measures because as an industry body we also have our own internal processes. For example, if we need to fine, we can report to the central bank, and the central bank has powers to remove such a person from participating. But internally, before we go to the central bank, we have a committee of industry players. And I would like to say that it's really a privilege for CIS Kenya, because this has not happened for any other entity for the central bank to enforce through this industry system. And so we are fortunate to have in our membership at CIS Kenya the Kenya Bankers Association as a key member of our governing council. So the systems are in place that can ensure that the industry itself, using a committee that reviews regularly the reports of what goes to the credit bureaus, is able to do some industry self-regulation by requiring certain actions over time, with time-bound requirements for the time being before we go to the central bank for action. The central bank, apart from its ability to withdraw approval of any entity to submit data to the bureau, also now last year introduced penalties that it can impose even prior to removing an entity from submitting data. So I think a lot more has been put in place. Third-party credit providers who are not regulated by the central bank now can be penalized financially for any action they do. And besides that, there is now the Data Protection Commissioner. The Data Commissioner,
Office of Data,
Office of the Data Commissioner, Data Protection is possible now. We can work with the Data Commissioner as well to ensure. So we have multiple channels of ensuring compliance with the law.
Because the Central Bank of Kenya, because of its long history, it has well-defined rules and regulations, on how to deal with these. But when you go through the Data Protection Act, a lot of powers and regulatory platforms, are vested within the purviews of the Office of the Data Commissioner, and that is where fines like if an institution is in breach of data, they are penalized, to the point of almost 4 million, 5 million shillings. So what is the collaboration between your association, the Central Bank of Kenya, and the Office of Data Commissioner?
That's a good question. There is absolutely a necessity for these entities to work together, because the Data Commissioner has come in late in the day. The credit bureaus were licensed before the DPA, the Data Protection Act, was enacted several years before, and the central bank, through regulation, already has control over how things happen with the credit bureaus. But now, with the Data Commissioner having come in, I see enhancement. There are things that the Data Commissioner requires of these data processors that the central bank did not require. And so we see an enhancement of expectation, and therefore a need for collaboration. We have already reached out as an association to the Data Protection, the Data Commissioner, to the Office of the Data Commissioner, and we have agreed that there is going to be collaboration. So then the entities between the Data Protection Act operators and the central bank, that is already an established, both of them are acts of parliament, and so they are definitely going to talk to one another. We find ourselves in a very peculiar situation where, as an association that is recognized now by the central bank and that will work with the Data Commissioner as well, the three of us will form a working arrangement that will ensure that when it comes to credit information sharing, the expectations of both the central bank and the data commissioner are harmonized and enforced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You see, when you go through our Data Protection Act, I mean, it borrows a lot from the European Union law on general data protection, and of course, it has laid out very punitive measures, to ensure that third-party organizations or entities do not handle data they are not supposed to handle. But we have a situation whereby even political parties, they have your data, I mean, without your consent. The other day, there was a huge uproar in the country when people woke up and one day you find yourself, you are in a certain political entity, you belong to this political party and so much. As people, what our remedial measures can we take? I mean, when we sense and when we feel that there is a breach in terms of the data by other entities?
Yeah, the data commissioner has established a reporting system. I don't know whether they are going to have offices across the country, but at least at the interim, they have established a system on their website where if you are offended in any way about your data and the way it is being handled, you can log on to the website of the data commissioner and you will post in your complaint. It is well structured and the timelines have already been established upon which that process will be done in terms of investigation. We must admit this is a mammoth responsibility. The Office of the Data Commissioner will have to expand in terms of its capacity and competence to be able to handle complaints that come from so many sources. And you have given just an example of the political environment, but there are many other examples. There is health, for example. Yeah. My data is sitting with different hospitals. It is sitting with the insurance companies that are supporting the health services. It is sitting in supermarkets where I have a card and I'm shopping, and it is taking my data and it is analyzing my consumption patterns, and they are using that sometimes to market to me, and I might complain and say, look, I didn't expect this kind of marketing when I took this card in order to get my points. And so I can imagine a wide range of complaints that will fall with the data commission, and I think they are competent and they are putting in place very strong measures to be able to address the wide array of complaints that they will receive.
And of course, some of your members in the Credit Information Sharing Association are digital lenders.
Yes.
And in the past, they have come under heavy criticism, for accessing data and, of course, using it to coerce people, to borrow money, at exorbitant interest rates. So what are you doing to ensure that, rogue, if I was to call them, or entities or credit digital lenders who are in possession of customers' data illegally, they regularize the actions?
That's a good question because it touches on very, very many Kenyans. So many of us are using the digital platforms, our mobile phones, to access credit quite conveniently. And so we must admit that to begin with, the popularity of these digital lenders is an attestation of a value that they really give. You wouldn't have such widespread use of digital credit if it wasn't really helping mwananchi. So I think the positive side of this digital credit is that it is solving a lot of mwananchi needs in a very convenient way, from the comfort of their locations, wherever they are. They don't have to go to a brick and mortar place. So there's a positive thing about this innovation, and it has really enhanced access to credit. It has enabled people to solve problems at very short notice, be it school fees, be it hospital bills. So there is a very positive side to it. Now, because of the concerns where some rogue digital lenders began going out of their way, out of best practice and ethical ways to collect this debt credit that has been granted, the first thing that happened is that the industry itself, the digital lenders themselves, established an industry body the Digital Lenders Association of Kenya, which began to scrutinize who really is doing good practice, who is not. And if you are not doing good practice, you cannot be a member of the Digital Lenders Association of Kenya. And so we must applaud the DLAC, as they are called in short, for taking the first steps outside of regulatory space to kind of put their house in order. Now, they can't do that on behalf of people who are not members of DLAC. And so I think the first beautiful thing is that they have put out the list of who are legitimate lenders within their website. And so we are able to see who have identified themselves with best practice within that space. The second thing that happened is that the central bank itself said, now from the regulatory side, we also want to intervene. It wasn't the mandate of central bank traditionally to license digital lenders. It has not been. Yeah. And so it was really a proactive step of the central bank to go out of its mandate and define a new category of lenders that it is going to regulate. And that's why the amendment that we are discussing in Parliament now is the amendment to the Central Bank of Kenya Act, not to the Banking Act, because the Central Bank needed to introduce a mandate that it didn't have. And so this has been a very important step, and fortunately, quite fortunately, the Digital Lenders Association have been very supportive of the efforts of the central bank to legitimize this space. And so the central bank amendment bill now is requiring that every participant in the digital lending space be licensed by the central bank, even though they are not deposit taking, which is really, I think, revolutionary. And for the digital lenders to say that's acceptable, I think it shows that even digital lenders are really above board in this space, especially those who are credible. And so it's very soon we are going to be able to shift to sift those who are truly best practice players and those who are not.
Before I let you go, finally, as an association, I mean, what is your position on the CBK Amendment Bill 2020?
The CBK Amendment Bill is well intended. It was revolutionary to the extent that it was not traditional for the central bank to be involved in this. I think the most important caution that everybody is giving, and we support that caution, and the central bank accepts that caution, is that by regulating this space, it is not going to interfere with the innovative capabilities, and this space is a very innovative space. Regulation can sometimes block or stall innovation, and so that's the only concern, and central bank has been very, very alert to that concern, and as it takes over this responsibility, we are assured that it's going to allow the innovation to take place. And central bank is known for its support for innovation. It has demonstrated that in the past through the way it supported the M-Pesa innovation, and also through the various fora at which it organizes support for innovation. So we support the bill.
Anything else?
Well, it's just to say that we as consumers need now to start seeing credit bureaus as being our ally. We traditionally see credit bureaus as places where our negative data is being posted, and if you start thinking negative, then there's something wrong with you in the first place. All our data is being submitted to the bureau when we pay and when we don't pay. And so when you look at the database of the credit bureau, you will find that the large majority of the entities or individuals whose data is sitting in the bureau are positive. They are highly rated. And so we all need to support the credit bureau system so that our negative information starts transforming into positive information by paying up our loans so that our scores can improve and we stop demonizing these credit bureaus.
And of course, it also it calls upon credit reference bureaus, to also come out and tell people, hey, look here, you're not just in position of your bad information.
Right.
We also in position of very good information about you.
Exactly.
Very well. Thank you very much, Jared, for finding time to be with us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Jared Gitenga is the CEO of Credit Information Sharing Association of Kenya, joining us this morning to help us understand the governance of data and the sanctity of data in this country. And of course, you have listened to him. My name is O'Brien Kim, and this is BizCheck. We are live from Broadcasting House. Our next topic is coming up next, and we are focusing on food security in relation to the drought that the country is going through. What are the mitigation measures? Stay right here.
Him near you, my dearest son. And I don't have any doubt that he was the one who shot Victoriano. If you had listened to me, Vicente, you would still be alive. No. You wouldn't dare tell Emiliano.
Then don't try me.
No, don't come in. Victoriano! Victoriano, get me out of here! Victoriano!
He said that you hired me to get revenge.
Where am I? I don't even know where I am.
I don't want to hear a peep until morning. In fact, why don't you all sleep?
What?
So what happened?
Or she found a richer, better looking option.
She's not my wife.
You don't want it? Or would you prefer some of that bad chicken?
Kupitia uongozi wa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali imewekeza zaidi katika ukarabati na upanuzi wa miradi ya unyunyiziaji maji mashamba kote nchini. Wiki hii kwenye Project 254,
we must empower our farmers with the information necessary to increase their output, reduce their unit cost of production, and therefore significantly improve returns on their investment.
Zamani tulikuwa tunapewa msaada wa chakula, na siku hizi tunajitegemea sisi wenyewe.
Wametupatia kitu ya muhimu ambayo hakitakwisha. Kitu tutaendelea kuvuna, kila wakati tutaendelea kuvuna kutoka kwa hayo maji.
But then don't worry, you understand?
I don't trust you. I trust you.
Thank you. I needed that.
Mnatoshaje kako kanyumba kenyu kadogo?
Everybody needs to start minding their own business around here.
Look at who he's talking.
Hey, Sugar. I thought you could use my new number since you told me hubby discovered the old one. Hello? Are you...
You're beautiful and I'm blessed to have you.
Well then, I guess I need to go now.
That's an hour of time we don't have, Farah. I say we listen to what Kinyanjui has to say, right?
How about we focus on the task at hand?
Will you come off my back, Katito? I am a woman, I can multitask.
Now that you guys have all of a sudden decided to be Mother Teresa's, let me take my leave.
What kind of nonsense is this? Eh? Why can't you just speak normally?
Masefara, shut up. You're not the director.
Will you pay attention? Eh? You are just about to arrest him.
I shall do no such a thing.
Goodbye.
Classmates, every Saturday on KBC.
Now, they say life is an interesting business, and it's even more interesting when we live a life for others.
Several attempts on my life have been made,
yes,
but it still has changed nothing of me. When the time comes for me to die, I'll die whichever way it comes.
Yeah.
The thing is that you have to say the truth.
Yes.
My calling does not allow me to lie, because God does not bless lie.
Does that become a bit discouraging, and do you feel like, maybe I should do less and talk less?
So say, dance with me, dance with me, dance with me, oh. I've never seen anybody do the things you do before. Baby, I don't need dollar bills to have fun tonight.
The challenges I face is when I'm just a small talented kid, but then the other children treat me like a celebrity and they also want to be like me.
We will be reading from this huge book. It is called Now I Can Read.
Today I'm going to show you guys on how to make the perfect vanilla.
Your Majesty, it was the Empress Mother that ordered it done. Or else I wouldn't have dared.
That's a lie!
After what he said in court, I think most officials won't believe that. It's you behind this thing.
Hold on. You must hang in there. We'll arrive at the nunnery soon. They said there's a doctor there. I'm sure she'll cure you. Hang on. Just hang on, brother. Hurry! Faster!
If you keep messing around like this, I'm afraid you'll end up in jail again. Dr. Hang, watch out!
I want him near you, my dearest son. And I don't have any doubt that he was the one who shot Victoriano. If you had listened to me, Vicente, you would still be alive. No. You wouldn't dare tell Emiliano.
Then don't try me.
No, don't come in! Victoriano! Victoriano, get me out of here! Victoriano!
He said that you hired me to get revenge.
Najua una wasiwasi na Badi, lakini hata yeye wakati wake utafika na nitamweka chini kama vile babake na dadake.
Una hakika?
Na bahati sana mume wangu hayuko, angekuwa mngenipigia saluti kuanzia getini mpaka huku ndani.
Nani babako hapa?
Kombo, wamtukana mgeni na maneno makali namna hiyo?
Haya si yako eh? Kwa hivyo mtoto ndio shida.
Malezi ni ya watu wawili. Kuna shida yote akiwa na wewe?
Now a prophet and messenger, and in the skies was angel Jibril.
Kwa mujibu wa suratul Waqi'a, kutakuwa na vikundi vitatu vya watu katika siku ya Kiyama. Kikundi cha kwanza kikiwa ni kundi cha watu ambao watakabidhiwa vitabu vyao kwa mkono wa kulia, na kikundi cha pili ni kikundi cha watu wa kushoto ambao watakabidhiwa vitabu vyao kwa mkono wa kushoto. Kikundi cha tatu
upon his soul.
Welcome back to BizCheck. And of course, our focus now turns to the drought situation in the country. And if we can help you put it in, if I can help you put it into perspective, about 2.1 million Kenyans are in dire need of food assistance because of poor rainfall for the last 2 consecutive planting seasons. That is according to the National Drought Management Authority. And the government has sent out an appeal of about 2 billion shillings, to help deal with this kind of a crisis. And we have our reporters on the ground who are tracking the situation for you. Time now to dash to Tana River County, where Carol Kamau is at the Hola irrigation scheme, and she's ready to talk to the manager in charge of the irrigation scheme, which is one of the flagship projects that is supposed to deal with perennial food shortages in Tana River County. Carol Kamau, it looks green and beautiful in your background. What's happening?
A very good morning to you, O'Brien. Kimani back at Broadcasting House in Nairobi. I'm live from Tana River County. Right now we are at Hola Irrigation Scheme. I'd want my camera to just pan to the left and show you the kind of farming that is ongoing at the Hola scheme. What you see on your screens right now is a maize plantation. It's 1,800 acres of maize plantation at Hola Irrigation Scheme. This is part of the mitigation measures that are being taken by the county government and of course the National Irrigation Scheme here at Hola. I'll also be joined shortly, of course. I'll be joined by the manager. I'll be joined by the manager of Hola Irrigation Scheme just to tell us exactly what is happening here, what kind of support farmers are getting. Is there any sort of stakeholder support they're getting to ensure that there's growth of crops, there's food security in this area? And I think, so there you have it, Mr. James Kirimi. Mr. James Kirimi, karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
All right. All right. So we at Hola Irrigation Scheme. Basically, this is what you do on a daily basis, trying to ensure that the county is food secure. Just talk to us about this scheme.
Very well. Thank you very much, Carol, and your team for joining us in Tana Irrigation Scheme. National Irrigation Authority actually is the institution which is mandated to manage all national irrigation schemes in the country. And currently, this is one of the many schemes which we are running across the country. And due to government support, you can be able to see the maize crop, which we have been able to put up with the farmers to ensure that we achieve the national agenda for food security and nutrition. And we have mentioned the maize crop is one of the many crops which we do. We are also doing other crops, as we are going to be able to tell our viewers. The maize crop, and with the current climatic conditions where we have seen there is a lot of drought, we have ensured that the farmers have put up enough crop which can be able to feed the county and the farmers themselves, and the surpluses can be able to be sold to the outside market.
Of course, right now on your screen what you see is maize crop, but as he mentioned, Kirimi mentioned, we'll be going into to see more crops that are being farmed in this farm. Just talk to us about some of those. Of course, we'll be bringing that story to you a little later in our bulletin. Just tell us some of the crops that are under this irrigation scheme, and are they drought resilient?
Yes, other crops which are being done in this scheme in furtherance to achieving the Big Four agenda, we are doing a cotton crop, which is a BT cotton crop to support the manufacturing sector. We are also doing green grams, which is a legume crop. We are also doing horticultural crops like onions and watermelon, and which are basically for export markets outside the county and even for local consumption.
Earlier we did talk about technology involvement and how technology is helping improve efficiency in this area. Something of course we'll be looking at as we move along, but just tell us some of the things you're doing to improve, to make sure that agriculture is more efficient by introduction of technology.
We are introducing technology, mechanization, as one of the great pillars, one of the steps to ensure that the farming is not that tedious and ensuring that the farmers also enjoy and they become more efficient in their farming business. We are doing rice transplanting, as we are going to see across the other side. Introduction of rice transplanter in doing rice. Rice is a crop which has been peaking gradually, but now we want to accelerate that because we have known this country has been an importer of rice for quite some time, and we are ensuring that due to the changing feeding habits of the citizens, we are going to provide solutions through irrigated agriculture to ensure that the farmers can be able to get locally produced rice and in a more efficient manner. So we are grateful that we are partnering with the Kirimo company. We are also partnering with financial institutions like AFC and KCB and the Equity Bank to ensure that the farmers can be able to access affordable credit and at the same time be able to adopt the new technologies to improve on our farming activities. So in a very near future, we will be looking at this scheme being able to produce substantial quantities, almost close to what is being produced in Moya.
As we bring this to a close, livestock farming is also important in this area. What are you doing as a scheme to support livestock farmers in this region?
As we've seen across the country, there is this persistent drought and the climate change is here with us. So we have integrated pasture production with the farmers, and also the byproducts which are coming from our crop of maize and also rice, where we are harvesting rice, is being used to feed the livestock. So you can be able to tell even the livestock farmers who are here, they are living very harmoniously with the crop farmers because they know the benefits of the crop and also the feeding which they are going to support their livestock. Yes. Thank you very much.
All right, so that's Mr. James Kirimi. He is the manager of Hola Irrigation Scheme. Right now we are at Hola Irrigation Scheme taking a drive through the entire scheme just to look at some of the crops that are being grown here. We've been told about watermelons, we've been told about onions, and of course, as you can see, there's maize in this scheme. And of course, later we'll be also looking at livestock farming and what's happening in that front. And like he said, they're also supporting livestock farming as we keep our eyes on the mitigation measures Tana River County is taking to help people of this area as they continue to face a drought. My name is Caroline Kamau. O'Brien, back to you. There's much more in store for you today. We'll be filing stories later in the day just to show you exactly what's happening in Tana River County. Back to you, O'Brien.
Wakaro come out here in Tana River County tracking the drought situation and of course the food security situation in Tana River County. It is one of the 23 counties that have been flagged as in dire need of food assistance, and of course this is where you have about 2.1 million people require fast food interventions, and there are elaborate measures and there are elaborate processes to ensure that the situation is dealt with. That is according to government and the private sector players. So we'll be linking up with our reporters who are in different parts of this country. We have our people in Marsabit and of course many other parts of this country to try and understand how bad is the situation and how it's being dealt with. But back now into the studio, I'm joined by three experts to help us understand how better can we handle the situation at hand. Because 3 years down the line, we'll continue to talk about drought, because drought is cyclical. Even in developed economies right now, the United States and of course in the state of California and Nevada, they're also battling with a huge crisis of drought. But you see, there's drought and there's also food insecurity. So where do you draw the line between these? That's why we have some experts in the studio to help us put all these things into question. We have Anthony Weru. He's the chair or the chief executive officer of Association of Kenya Feed Manufacturers. He is on my extreme left. Thank you very much indeed. I mean, extreme right. Thank you very much indeed, Wero, for finding time to be with us. And of course, next to him is Peter Abwao. He's a communications manager at Red Cross Kenya. Thank you very much, Peter, as well. And on my immediate right is Mercy Munene. She's the Chief Executive Officer of Shamba Connect. Asante sana for finding time to be with us here. First of all, when people are talking about hunger, what comes into mind are the people in the rural areas. What we do not realize is that you have hundreds or thousands of folks in the urban centers who, yes, they live in nice houses, but they don't have access to food. How bad is urban hunger in Kenya?
That's true. According to FAO, food security involves access and also is the food enough? Is the food accessible? Is it enough? Is it nutritious for the populace? For you to say that now the population has food security. So you find that in the urban areas, yes, we have food. We access maize flour, we access vegetables, but what does it have inside? You find that you're actually just eating empty calories. That at the end of the day, if we're not able to feed our children with the right nutrients, then we're setting them up for failure in future.
Failure in future.
Yes.
We'll be discussing that failure in future. Let's talk to Anthony Wero, the Chief Executive Officer of Association of Kenya Feed Manufacturers. You are telling me that about 20 feed manufacturers have halted the production because of lack of material.
Yes.
Is that how bad the situation is on the ground?
Yeah, thank you. That's the situation in terms of access to raw materials. And I wish to demystify, most of the people think that animal feeds is about maize and wheat. That is just an energy component. What is lacking in the country is more of the protein aspect, which is very important. By the way, animal feeds is more like human feed. It must have the three components. So we already have the energy components. That's the wheat and maize or rice. Those ones are there. But the protein component, that is either soya, we have cotton, or we have soya, we have sunflower, we have fish bone, fish bone, or maize, or not maize, or we have those. The protein aspect is not readily available in Kenya. So what has happened is that farmers are not, the prices has gone up. So farmers are not able to buy the feed as a supplement to what they are providing with the animals. And when you say now about the aspect of drought, as much as it affects the human aspect, it also hits a lot of the livestock sector. So now farmers are unable to get the animal feeds, and on the other side they are being hit by the drought. So it's a catch-22. So most of the feed companies are operating below capacity. One, because of the raw materials. So then the prices has gone up. So the livestock.
Why have prices gone up?
One, the law of demand and supply. I can tell you most of the protein components we import. We don't have the capacity, and it's a challenge to the county government and the national government to encourage farmers to grow sunflower. There is a ready market to grow sunflower, cotton, and also soya. Because the byproduct of these crops is what feed manufacturers use. So we have sunflower, the cooking oil manufacturers will be able to buy it locally. Then from there, feed manufacturers will make use of the byproduct. So because we import, and mostly we were relying a lot with Zambia. We buy Zambia, Tanzania, and we have Uganda and also Malawi. Zambia, which was the main source, banned any export of the raw material because of the shortage. They were foreseeing the shortage. So when they banned, so we are competing with the small that is there. So we are trying now to look at it from Uganda, Tanzania, Malawi, and sometimes even South Africa. So the law of demand and supply. So when there is no raw materials, whatever is available, the price goes up. And remember, we are importing. The cost, also the cost of importing.
Very well.
Yeah.
Peter Abwao, you are with Red Cross, and this is the time that most Kenyans remember that there's Red Cross when it comes to when the country is in a crisis, be it floods, be it food. Can you help us understand how bad or how dire is the situation of drought on the ground in Kenya?
Thank you, Brian. And I think when we talk about the situation on the ground, we need to, first of all, speak about the number of people that are affected, the number of people that are in dire need of food support. And in your introduction, I think we are currently talking about at least 2.1 million people across the country, largely in the north, arid and semi-arid regions. This number could grow. We have been told that the rains that will come in the next rainy season, which is October, November, December, may not be adequate. So we're looking at a possibility of this number growing and the number of counties affected also growing from the current 12 to higher than that. In this number, we have young children, below 5 who have nutrition issues. The rate of malnutrition is growing. We have women who are lactating or pregnant who need higher nutrition support. And these are the numbers we are talking about. Now, as my brother has already talked about, the people in northeastern regions, including Turkana, especially the northern sector of our country, are largely livestock keepers. So a lot of their food comes from either eating livestock products or selling the livestock in exchange or to be able to buy their daily food. And we have seen in recent months, Brian, we've started talking about a drought from about April this year. That's when we really actually started the active response to drought. And since then, the number has been growing. We started with just about six counties being affected most. Now we are talking about 12. We do hope that we don't move beyond that. Yeah. And since then, of course, the issues of water. We talk about food, but there's also water for domestic use and for livestock use. The wells and the water pans that people depend on have progressively been drying, increasing the distances that people then have to walk to fetch water. Then there's issues of security come in as people try to compete for these scarce resources. So that is essentially where we are. In recent months, we have seen an increase in the deaths of now these cattle and the livestock. And that means that then the livelihood of these people is basically going away. So the basic needs that we are talking about is that people need water and need water urgently for domestic use and for their livestock. People need food very urgently. People need health services. We know that when children are malnourished, we need to take care of these children. We need to make sure that they access health services. We need to know to make sure that their mothers are able to go to clinic as should be. So the drought has really complicated situations in most of our northeastern counties.
Very well. And let's, for example, pick at the northeastern part of this country. Or the northern counties, and in 2013, here we were here again, discussing the issues of drought in this country, and people were in dire need of food assistance. That was at the onset of devolution in this country. We are now talking about how many years now? Almost 10 years down the line. Tremendous resources have been poured into these counties, and especially counties in the north, whereby they also get allocations from the Equalization Fund. And when you look at the Controller of Budget report, you realize that in the last 7 years, counties have received more than 4 trillion Kenya shillings, cumulatively. So why are we still talking about drought in counties when we have county government to also deal with this situation?
Thank you, Brian. I'm the wrong person to speak about what counties are doing or not doing. But
the reason why I'm asking is you are with the Red Cross. Red Cross, you are the repository of data before before county governments came into force, and now you're also on the ground, tracking the situation. So you will be in a situation to help the country understand whether these counties are better than they were before devolution, or anything has changed on the ground really.
Well, I think let me look at it from just a slightly different, but still answering your question. We have had the frequency of droughts generally increasing, and I think the elephant in the room really is climate change. This year, for example, we had when we launched our drought appeal, we actually launched a dual appeal. We were responding to floods in the lake region and responding to drought in the north. So you realize that in one part of the country we are experiencing floods, and the other part we are experiencing droughts. So that is the situation that we are dealing with currently. The frequency of these floods has increased. We used to have them 10 years, then it came to 5 years, and now we are doing it 2 years, because we had drought in those counties in 2017, and now we in 2017. 2019 it was not so intense, but we already have serious drought currently. So climate change has been an issue. As to whether things have changed significantly, maybe we can look at what the county governments themselves have been doing. I think we really have to appreciate that many of these county governments have involved in some response. We know that, for example, we work with Marsabit. They've been involved in water tracking and things like those. However, the issue really is we don't need to be discussing drought per se, because we know that drought is going to be there anyway, because now climate change is with us. But how do we then prepare to minimize the impact of this drought on the people? How do we then put in place measures and make sure that we at least enhance our food security, we are able to provide water sustainably and reduce the negative effects that we are seeing today? And that is where the conversation actually is at the government level. We interact, we do this jointly with the county governments in place. So these are the discussions that we are having. How can we best prepare to make sure that people do not suffer so much when drought comes, because we already know that it's going to come?
I'm going to ask you what measures have been put in place, in that regard, but I can see where wants to interject. Yeah. Yes, where?
The question that you have asked, and the amount of money that has been poured or has been put into the counties, I would wish to look at it from a bigger picture. The issue of food security and drought is linked to agriculture. It's all about agriculture. But remember, agriculture is a devolved function.
Yes.
But even being devolved, if you look at since the advent of devolution, the focus on agriculture has greatly reduced. Although the counties are the ones who are supposed to drive the agriculture perspective, if you cannot be able to exactly apportion the amount of money that is going to agriculture. So that focus, there is a lot that is not happening within the counties. And so when agriculture is not being taken care of, then we are not able to cushion ourselves now against, when drought comes, we can able to survive because we have enough food. We have focusing on agriculture. Ironically, he's talking about arid and semi-arid areas where there is drought and there is lack of food. At the same time, there are some other regions, there is excess food. Look at milk, where milk is being there is milk glut. If you look at food baskets in Yadaro and some part of Rift Valley or Central Province, there is food. But there are some other areas that don't have food. So how then can county government even the national government perspective be able to balance? And one of the things that was coming up is the issue of strategic food reserve. I think it was disbanded.
Yeah.
That strategic food reserve, it was supposed to come in to caution when there's a shortage. And there was an issue to expand the strategic reserve from not only from cereals or maize. Many people know about
to
maize.
Diversify and expand.
Like where there is milk glut, that milk can be converted into powder.
That was a conversation that was very prevalent back in the year 2011, when the country was also going through another crisis. And I remember the former president, Mwai Kibaki, directed the National Cereals and Produce Board to set up strategic reserves in regions. Back then we didn't have counties. In regions where we experience plenty of food, like Nyandarua, you know, like Uasin Gishu, to upscale. But this has not happened so far. And that's why I want to hear from Peter, because you engage with the county government, you know, when it comes to the issues of food security and mitigation measures around drought. You're talking about them doing so much, but what would you classify as so much?
Yes, you know, it's hard to talk about so much when people are hungry. So, of course, you cannot, you know, when you talk about them doing so much, and of course, I appreciate that people expect a lot more than just what has been done, but I think there are the same issues like he's just talked about, making sure that, you know, there is food. But of course, you know, we may have food in other part of the country, and the issue is movement. But beyond that, there is then the purchasing power in these same regions. So even if you are to transport food from the other end to the other end, then maybe people on the other side will not afford. Then of course there's also the issue people
cash transfers. I mean, cash through the cash transfer.
Yes, and that is now, you know, one of the things that Kenya Red Cross has been advocating for, because if you do cash transfers, then it means that you do not only provide food for those who are really in need, but you also build the local economy. You know, when people get money, that person who is able to transport food from one corner to the other is able to, you know, to sell and invest in something else. We have been here before, and we will be here again. So I think, you know, there are things that we are discussing. There are things that we are discussing with the county government. We're talking about, you know, also talking to the communities, and not just government but communities. You know, what were their livelihoods based on? How can they change? How can they begin to grow crops, not just in those parts of the country, but crops that really are fast maturing, you know, that they do not require prolonged rain, like you know, like maize. You know, how can they also adapt, you know, different feeding habits? You know, sometimes you go to these northeastern areas or some of those areas, you give them maize, but they don't eat maize. So we are trying to look at what are these things that they are, you know, they prefer. How can they really be adapt? Then the other thing that is now coming out very strongly that we are discussing with various county governments and other partners is in, you know, investment in climate smart agriculture.
Yes.
And those are, you know, fast maturing crops, you know, not really depending on rain so much. So these are conversations, and, you know, they actually take time. They take time, yeah.
I'll come back to you, and I would want to find out that you know, in terms of investing in agriculture mechanization, and I'm talking about things like irrigation, you'll be helping us to understand whether there are counties that have invested in irrigation project, you know, to deal with hunger or to deal with the drought in their counties. But I want to hear from Masi Munene here. Masi, when you hear us talking about drought day in, day out, food insecurity day in, day out, how does that make you feel?
It's a very interesting thing, because it's something that is happening every single year. We are having the same conversation every single year. Every single year you'll have this these appeals from the such organizations that will be asking for food, and yet is there a way that we can mitigate it? Because now we know that the drought will be there almost every year. And now we know that if we keep depending on the rain for our farming, are we able to sustain it? Like currently, if you look at the central region, their potatoes, a sack goes for 600 shillings. 3 months from now, it will be 3,000 shillings. I mean, right now, and people are still hungry. So basically, how much have you used to even do that farming for the 600 shillings? At the end of the day, does it really make sense? I look at it as, should we make it more sustainable? Do we have to depend on rain? Can we use the climate smart systems that are in place? Other countries are doing that. If you look at Israel, if you look at South Africa, they're not depending on rain for them to be able to farm. They're able to even export food to people like us who already have enough arable land. So I look at it as a multidisciplinary, something that we need to look at it from different aspects, and we all need to put our heads together and see how we can forge forward. And I think I'm happy that there are things that are already being put in place that are going to help us mitigate that. Yeah.
You see, when you look at the livestock sector in this country, it's worth almost 80 billion shillings. You know, so it's a significant contributor to Kenya's GDP. How impacted is this sector by the raging drought?
It is significant. It's a large percentage, because if you look at both from dairy, look at the dairy sector, we also have the pig, we have the poultry, and also we have the beef sector. And as you have said, the arid and semi-arid areas where a percentage of the beef sector comes in, that is clearly very much affected. If you get to the dairy sector, it also takes the same angle. Milk production is dependent on feeding. And feeding, as I said, there is the original, the first feeding of the fodder, which is mostly grown in the farm. So when there is a drought, there is also a shortage of fodder from the farm level. Look at hay, look at napier grass. When there is that drought, that one is not available. So we can see the impact of the drought to the life sector is wide. And that also now affects, remember, livestock sector, apart from employment or creating jobs, it also contributes a large percentage of food security and nutrition, and in fact the aspect of nutrition. Look at a small child who depends on milk. The first thing is milk. So when that milk is not available, or the cost is very high, it's affecting the nutrition aspect of the growth of that kid. So what you can see that the livestock sector has been affected. And of course, it's a loss. And it's good what we have seen, especially we saw in Kitui County, and what the governor is trying to do, so as to improve the beef sector. So I think those are some of the initiatives that need to be brought forward by the county government, so as to support the livestock sector.
There are about 20 million cattle in Kenya. That's according to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. How many livestock are at risk of being wiped out by the drought as we speak? Do you have any statistics?
I may not have the concrete statistics, but if you look at it from the regions, the regions that are highly impacted by the drought, subsequently those are the areas that will also be affected. The livestock will be wiped out. They might not be wiped out completely, but what happens is that the quality of the livestock goes down. I think we haven't gone to an extent where we used to see animals dying. So I think
they are dying, definitely.
We have reached there.
Oh yeah, we've been there.
That now is the most worrying aspect.
Let's hear from Peter Aboa, because he's on the ground. Peter Aboa, first of all, we are seeing pictures, and videos of cattle, sheep and goats, dying, in large scale. How is that how bad the situation is in those counties?
Yes, animals have started dying. I think when I started, I said that from around the beginning of September, some of the pictures that we are seeing from Isiolo, from Garissa, from Samburu are now of dying animals, and this. And actually, this is what has really now prompted the declaration of that disaster. Because when we visited these places, and as he says about milk, you find a family where the man and the boy children have gone away for months. looking in search of pasture and water, leaving the women and young girls without milk, because they depend on milk, without food. And these are the people, the scenes that we see. So for now, the threat of animals, and as he says, you see those ASAL counties, you're talking about Samburu, Turkana, you're talking about Baringo, Marsabit, Mandera, Wajir, those are the counties, including where we have the recent skirmishes of Laikipia. Those are the counties that have about 70% of the livestock. You see counties like Kiambu and the rest, they practice more of zero grazing. And then the volume of cattle there is not as high as those counties. So that is why if something is not done urgently, then a big percentage of our livestock is going to...
Let's now, first of all, have a real-life look at the situation in Wajir County. And now we connect with our reporter, Aidan Mohammed, who is in Wajir County, which is one of the most impacted by the drought. Aidan, what do you have to tell us in regard to the conversation we are having here and how bad is the situation in Wajir County?
Okay, thank you very much, O'Brien Kimani. Currently, we are still in Wajir for the last 4 days. We are trying to check the drought situation here in Wajir. Right now, we are at Lehele. If you look at my back, you see this livestock. They have trekked the whole last night. They have now come to the at water point. Now these are the remaining livestock which are trekking more than 100 kilometers, and now they are at water point at Lele. We are now joined by Ahmed Jele. Ahmed Jele, hebu tuelezee lini ambao umefika hapa ndugu yangu?
Sisi tumefika leo saa 10 haba saa 3. Tumetoka huko saa 8 usiku, tumetoka 100 kilomita. Hii ng'ombe zote hajatoka huko, lakini imekuja kidogo ile ambaye uko na tembea ndio imekuja hapa, ile nyingine zote huko kwa msituni. So sasa hii ng'ombe hakuna mziwa, hakuna zine zote, ukame mingi sana. Basi hii kabla haijaisha mvua, hii kitu karibu kukufa zote.
Sasa hali ya ng'ombe ziko namna gani? Na mnaishi namna gani?
Hali ya ng'ombe hatari sana. Sasa hii ng'ombe kama imetoka 100 kilomita na inakaa hivi, si mvua kabla haijawesha inakufa zote.
Na sasa inakuwa muda ngapi hapa hizo ng'ombe zitakuwa hapa?
Inakaa kama mpaka saa 10 jioni.
Na wewe unapata chakula kukula unatoa wapi ukitembea na 100 kilometers hiyo?
Hiyo ni ngumu sana.
Sasa mnaendelea kufanya nini sasa ile ambayo mnaweza okoa hii ng'ombe?
Hiyo ng'ombe sasa hii itabidi inafanya tu kwa ile kitu inapatikana kile imeisha zote. Sasa hii hakuna kitu inapatikana.
Kama nyinyi sasa ng'ombe wenu ngapi ambao zimekufa na hizi ambao zimebaki, utafika kwa Manyata lini sasa?
Sasa itafika Manyata kama saa 7 usiku. Itafika huko. Na ng'ombe imekufa kama 50 hivi.
Yeah, so O'Brien, I think you are getting from Ahmed Jele. This livestock, they came here the whole last night. They are trekking from 100 kilometers, and now they are here at Lehele water point. The drought situation currently in Wajir is becoming worse. Livestock is keep on dying. There's no milk. Even the headers who are working with this livestock, they are also fearing of their life. Now, O'Brien, back to the studio.
Well, that's Aidan Mohammed in Wajir County. He has actually been there for the last four days, actually doing such a fantastic job trying to track the drought situation in that county, which is one of the most affected by drought. We are back here in the studio, and of course we'll be crisscrossing many parts of this country to see exactly how bad the situation is on the ground. But back here in studio, our conversation is around food security and drought in this country. We are joined by Peter Abwao. He's the communications manager at Red Cross, and Mercy Munene, CEO of Shamba Connect, as well as Anthony Weru, who is the CEO of Association of Kenya Feed Manufacturers. Before we went for the break, I mean, you're telling us how badly affected, is the livestock in these counties. So what mitigation measures have been put in place to ensure that yes, we do not the farmers in those counties, they do not lose their entire herd to this drought?
Yeah, so for Red Cross, I think primarily we have been focused on human lives.
On human lives.
One of our biggest mandate is of course alleviating human suffering. So we have been doing a lot of food distribution, rehabilitation of water sources, the water pans and the boreholes, to make sure that people can access. And in so doing, of course, we are also taking care of their livestock, because that is where their livelihood really depends. We would wish that we didn't distribute food directly, but instead they were able to sustain themselves through some of these interventions. So jointly, of course, with the several county governments, we have been doing water tracking, but also providing water tokens. Water tokens is where you have some of these private water vendors, but then you give the community tokens if they want to to get water for their own use and for their animals. Then they go there and then they redeem those tokens.
Mm-hmm.
These are some of the things that we've been engaged in, at least to save animals. The other programs that we could explore going forward, including supporting communities to destock. When the animals get emaciated like this, then the prices are going to be very low. There are times when a cow that would fetch 20,000-30,000 would be sold off for 200 shillings. We don't want farmers, or at least these herders, to get to that level. So those are some of the programs that we will continue to explore going forward as the drought continues to unfold.
Mm-hmm. Mercy Munene, you encourage people, to get into what we call the kitchen garden farming. How well taken is this idea, especially in urban areas?
One thing we found interesting as we were doing our survey around, we find that people want that easy lifestyle, that microwave lifestyle, where you go to work, you come from work, you go to the food vendor, buy your vegetables already cut, you don't know how long they were there cut, you go cook them, and then you say you have eaten a healthy diet. But what happens is, when you cut the vegetables, they've been there exposed to the sun the whole day. By the time you're taking it in the evening, there's no nutrition really. So what we are doing is encouraging every household to own a small kitchen garden. Whatever space you have, you can be able to design something that can be able to fit your space. So we have done that in different homes, and we have seen the positive impact. We have done that in institutions, and it has been very encouraging to see, for example, like some hospitals that we have worked with, that lactating women and expectant women having their blood levels go up in a matter of months since we started that program.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is we install gardens for them. So when they come for their clinics, they're able to access the vegetables. So when they go home, they have access to fresh vegetables. So you monitor their levels of blood, their HB levels, at the start and at the end of a certain period of time. And you see the increase, and you see the difference has been that people are not aware that you need to take vegetables when they are not fully cooked, and also that they need to be in a situation where they're not exposed to environmental factors. So is it possible for all of us to do that?
Mm-hmm.
It is possible. In apartments, we have gone to a few places, and those are some of the programs that we are rolling out in different institutions, in homes, in hospitals, and such other places.
According to Food and Agriculture, organization, they are saying that, urban farming has the potential to deal with food insecurity in countries. If people are to embrace the habit and the culture of urban farming, whereby you don't have to have 10 acres, to be a farmer. You can just take advantage of the small backyard garden that you have, and plant some few crops here and there. So how widespread is this concept, especially here in Kenya?
I'm really happy. I mean, with the pandemic, when we were forced to go back home, to work from home, to have our schools at home, people started embracing that, because you realize that the income that is coming home is much less. Your children are here. What do we do with them? At the end of the day, they need food. So one of the things that came up is that whole aspect of kitchen gardening. Can we involve them in doing something? Can we involve them in... I like rabbit keeping because also it uses minimal space. So actually we put like even 4 levels in one place. So the children are able to be engaged in this food production that you're talking about. So when you're talking about food security, they know what it is about. When we talk about CBC, it's actually really helping. It's helping us because we are able to... The
CBC curriculum.
Yes. Children now understand where food comes from, what nutrition is, and I think it's a step in the right direction. I'm looking forward to having these 4K clubs being, revived in all schools.
Yeah.
But currently, it is a solution in the right direction.
Very well. Anthony, do we have enough fodder in this country as we stand now?
Water?
Fodder, I mean food for...
Yeah, fodder. We don't have, and as I've said, most of the fodder is gotten from farming, from the land. So like hay, Napier grass and all that, and it is directly linked to rainfall. Most of it is rain-fed. So there is a shortage. When there is drought, it also affects the fodder aspect. And sometimes, and that's why I said feed comes in to supplement. Livestock cannot rely purely on manufactured feed. So as I said, we don't have right now. If you look at large scale fodder growing, especially you have said about Laikipia, we have those large scale, and areas around Laikipia and Rift Valley where they grow those, hay and all this. So it gets affected by the drought, and that also now goes directly to affect even the livestock. So as I said, is that food security and the nutrition aspect is really threatened by this shortage. Yeah.
Peter, in 2013, there was a very noble initiative that was launched by the Kenya Red Cross. It was dubbed Kenyans for Kenya, or something like that. And the Kenya Red Cross invested in an irrigation model farm in Turkana County, which was touted as a model of how counties, or of how the semi-arid areas can utilize space to deal with the issues of food. Unfortunately, that project died back in the year 2014. Why did it die?
Thank you. So as you rightly put it, I think one of the things that we wanted to demonstrate, and we did demonstrate very effectively, is that there can actually be farming in many of these places. And it was not only in Turkana, we had similar projects in Marsabit as well, where we wanted to demonstrate that, we can actually produce food. And for some time, people were able to, feed themselves in those areas. But unfortunately, of course, when the drought ended and the projects were, of course, handed over to the community and the local authorities, a lot of dynamics happened, and then they did not take off. But for us, as the Kenya Red Cross, it is not a loss. We do not look at it as a loss. We look at it as a great opportunity for learning lessons. We did learn lessons that internally we have reflected on, and we still look forward to when we work with other partners, we're able to do those sort of initiatives probably with better hindsight. The Kenyans for Kenya initiative was an initiative led actually by the Media Owner Association, including the KBC, and we do appreciate, and that also showed the power of coming together, as Kenyans from the various sectors.
Are we likely to get there again in 2021?
There, in terms of calling
fundraising to feed our very own.
Look, already fundraising is ongoing. The unfortunate thing is that I think many Kenyans are used to the Red Cross will come out and provide a pay below bring. But you see, already the president has already declared a disaster. But even before that, at Red Cross we have people who are ever contributing. Our pay bill is always, ready to receive. Anybody who wants to support whatever cause, they can walk to us anytime and say, I want to support this cause, and we move. And in fact, we've been responding since, for example, we have already reached nearly 100,000 people with direct food distribution. Another over nearly 10,000 with cash transfers.
But we're not likely to see, a large scale Save Our Souls kind of initiative like the one we saw in 2013.
I don't want to say we are not likely to see. What we are hoping,
let's hope we will not get there.
We are hoping that we don't see that. But that hope is also based on the fact that things will improve. We are hopeful that things will improve, and then we don't have to go that. But if that's what we must to save our kin who may be dying, then I wouldn't rule that out.
Before we internalize how to go about that, let's first of all now go to Mombasa, where the CS for Industrialization is reviewing various government projects, and of course, let's get an update from our reporter, Mr. Michael Mwandiga. Mwandiga, are you there? Very well. We'll try to get Mwandiga on board so that we can also get to hear from the CS for Industrialization, Madam Betty Minor. But, we are talking about, the model farm, and why do you think the farm failed? Well, it was a pilot project, and a pilot project is supposed to either succeed or fail. But in the process, you learn lessons that will help you, to make improvements in the future. First of all, why do you think it failed? And our county is enthusiastic about, starting this kind of projects.
I think the model farm, it is not, I wouldn't put it like the model farm failed. It's the project was not continued. You see, when you do a pilot, your intention is that somebody with greater resources will be able to scale that that up to if the results that you've achieved in the pilot are good enough. So what we have not, what has not been done, and but of course we have other irrigation projects that have been tried, but what has not been done is probably now for the county governments or other stakeholders, because these things require money. The money that the Red Cross had from the Kenyans for Kenya could not have been there in perpetuity, because Red Cross depends on that kind of funding. So once that phase of the funding was done, these projects were handed over to the. We had one in West Pokot, we had one in Turkana, and we had one in Marsabit. The ones for Marsabit until last year, we were still having some of those projects now under what we've been calling the smart agriculture initiatives. Some of them are still ongoing. But the issue really is, how can we take these projects and then implement them on a large scale to be able to provide food security for some of these areas?
Well, he's raising a very important question. How do we learn those lessons, and of course upscale that concept into a bigger project? Do you want to put in something
in terms of those projects? I'll get back to what I said about the role of county governments in agriculture. And from the constitution is everybody has a right to food. And the first thing is the government it's the responsibility of the government to make sure that its population has food. So first of all, the issue that you are asking about the fundraising, and the reason why Kenyans are a bit hesitant to take this. Although yes, they have financial strategies, but it is squarely lies onto the government to provide its people with food, or to provide mechanisms and direction and policies to make sure that the population has food. So in terms of projects, there is a need for partnership, especially in the county government and the private sector and individual farmers, so that they can embrace, this smart agriculture. By the way, if you note that we have large rivers in the country, do we tap them? Look at River Tana, all the way from Mount Kenya, but there, all the way to coast, to coast. How often do we make use of that river, that water?
Among many other rivers.
Yeah, among other. Do we tap the floods?
And that's a question that we have always posed and asked ourselves.
Yes.
But here we are now, Peter. I mean, what is the way forward? Because we have to wind up.
Yes, so the way forward, of course, one and the most important is to continue to support those in need of food today. If somebody is hungry, then all these policy talk about how we can invest in the future and all that it does not appeal to them. And so what us Red Cross we are doing, we are working with the partners. These partners include the government at the national level, the NDMA. We are working with the county governments and other partners to really look at how we can support them. We have mapped out at least 100,000 households in people that we want to reach directly with food distribution. 100,000 between now and December.
And each household has an average of how many people?
An average of 6 people.
6 people.
Yeah.
So those are about 600,000.
No, we're talking about 100,000 people for the Red Cross alone. But you see, we have other partners also doing that. We have also indicated a number of water points, water boreholes that we need to rehabilitate to at least be able to provide water for these people. We have health interventions ongoing. So for us, first, importantly, is to provide the immediate need that the communities require, and then have this conversation. We continue we are not suspending the conversation around what we do in going forward, because the drought will still be here. So we are discussing issues around climate smart agriculture, how we can make sure that communities are prepared better. For example, those that have large numbers of livestock, we are educating them to know that probably the time for that has passed. And then we have issues of destocking and restocking, issues of insurance for so that you minimize the losses. Those are the conversations that we are currently having as we move forward.
Good. And let's hope the conversation that you're having here will, of course, help alleviate the suffering of Kenyans wherever they are. Asante sana. Wero, Abwao and Monene for finding time to be with us this morning, and of course helping us understand how bad the situation is and the mitigation measures that are needed to deal with this kind of a crisis. Otherwise, your time is highly appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Of course, we have been discussing the issues of hunger, what the government is doing, what the private sector is doing, and of course the responsibility of citizenry in dealing with this kind of a crisis. This has been BizCheck. We come to the end of the program this morning. Thank you very much for finding time to be with us. Remember, Tamarini is coming up next. Stay right here.